So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the session. The next is The Case for Sanskrit by Matrushri Anantalakshmi and Dr. Gauri Moholikar. I would request both the dignitaries to come on stage, please. Thank you so much.
Hello. Namaste. This is going to be a very, very interesting session, and both the speakers are very erudite, and they will have you completely engrossed. But I am here to tell you the title of this book. This is actually borrowed from Sri Rajiv Malhotraji's book of the same name, The Case for Sanskrit. And when we were thinking of having such a session, we did think about names for this session, and try as I might, I tried my hardest. I could not find a title that is better than The Case for Sanskrit. So I am publicly acknowledging and thanking Sri Rajiv Malhotraji. His book is worth reading. It's available at the Subbu Books counter as well. And I am sure that both these speakers will talk effectively about why is there a case for Sanskrit. Thank you.
Namaste everyone, very happy to be back here, and Namaste Dr. Professor Gauriji. Very happy to be in your presence. We all look up to you and the kind of work that you have done for these many years. Before I go on to the questions, I want Gaurima to chant something in Sanskritam and also speak one or two lines in Sanskritam before even we go into this conversation.
अवश्यम् अवश्यं नमस्काराः धन्यवादाः सर्वेभ्यः आदौ तावत् सरस्वतीवन्दनेन आरप्स्येऽहं या देवी सितपङ्कजा सनवरासीनाक्षमालाकरा वीणाझङ्कृति नष्टसर्वजडता स्मेरप्रफुल्लानना या वाक्यार्थपदप्रमाणविभवा या सर्वभाषात्मिका तां वाचामधिदेवतां भगवतीं वन्दे सदा भारतीं सरस्वतीं प्रणम्य अस्मिन् समारोहे अत्र साहित्योत्सवे लिटरेचर फेस्ट साहित्योत्सवे कोयम्बतूर नगरे अहं वेस्टर्न घाट इति मत्वा नाम पश्चिम घाट पश्चिम अथवा वारुणी दिशाम् आश्रित्य यः घाटः वर्तते तैः अहम् अत्र आहूता इति महान् मे सन्तोषस्य विषयः तत्रापि अपरः अयं विशेषः यत् मातृश्री अनन्तलक्ष्मी अत्र प्रश्नकर्त्री-रूपेण मां काञ्चन प्रश्नान् पृच्छेत् इति मम सौभाग्यमिति मन्ये धन्यवादाः
I think more of these literary fests should probably be in the Bharatiya Bhashas too in the future for sure. And before I go into the questions, there are so many amazing things that are there about Sanskritam, at least in the little bit of explanation I've been exposed to. One, of course, is most of the knowledge systems that we are exploring today have Sanskritam as the basis. And as a person learns Sanskritam, you see that a lot of linked knowledge actually builds up. As I told you, with our Gurukulam children, it happens. They pick up one word, they know in many of the Shastras where that word actually comes. And I've seen this in a very deep manner in Sanskrit scholars such as you, because when you quote from these verses, you actually link so many Shastras. So that way it's a very profound thing. And now people are talking about Sanskritam having a lot of computational value as well, and how we can build, say, even in the modern AI world, how we can actually build large language models around Sanskritam. So there's huge potential for Sanskritam. But before all of these conversations, sometimes we often look at Sanskritam as a very serious language with a lot of just philosophy content into it. Are there lighter content things in Sanskritam? that you can share with our audience
Yeah,
here?
that's a very good thing. I think I can start with a puzzle for all of you. I can start with a puzzle, a riddle for all of you in Sanskrit. And as you think might be, that it is all related to philosophy or spirituality and all that, just try to solve the puzzle. Na tasya adihi, na tasya antaha. Na tasya adihi, na tasya antaha. Madhye yastasya tishtati. Tavapyasti, mamapyasti, yadi janasi, tadvada. Normally, when such a puzzle is asked.
Nilesh ji is...
Oh, Nilesh ji has raised hand. If you know the answer, yeah, please. So that's what. I was fearing the same. Why? Because na tasyadihi, so anadi. Not this anadi. And na tasyantaha anantam. So we think only of Brahman because Sanskrit gets associated with spirituality. So that is a debunking theory now. I mean, it's not only spirituality. You just, na, there is a word. Na is the beginning letter. Na is the end letter. Madhye yaha tasya tishtati ya. Tavapyasti mamapyasti. Nayana.
Oh.
So it's such a simple thing, but when it comes to Sanskrit, we always feel, oh, Sanskrit, it must be, something related to Anadi Ananta Brahma, right? So this was a lighter thing for you. And one more thing, for example, I quote from Banabhatta. Banabhatta was a great author, 8th century, Harshavardhana's period. And when he was on his deathbed, he was writing Kadambari. Kadambari is a fiction. Kadambari is not a Kadambari. It's a fiction. It's a Katha. And it was incomplete. So he had 2 sons and he wanted to assign that leftover work, for completion to one of his sons. So he asked both of them. He called both of them. And from his deathbed, he could see a barren tree outside, He could see it from his bed. So he just asked his elder son, what do you see there outside, Then he explained, Shushkaha vrukshaha tishtati agre. It's very simple. Shushkaha, barren, dry. Vrukshaha, tree. Tishtati agre, stands there, stands in the front. Okay, he said. He called another son, the younger one, Bhushana Bhatta. Apparently, he completed his Kadambari, Uttarardha. So he called him also. The thing won't change. The description manner would change, right? The thing won't change. There was a barren tree out there. So the way he explained was, Nirasa taruvara vilasati purataha. Same meaning is the same. But the shushkaha vrukshaha tishtati, so many of the harsh consonants, the tavarga, shavarga, the murdhanya, and all that, instead of that, Nirasa taruvara, dantya, litulasanam dantyaha. So the dantya swara makes it softer. So, and that also gives philosophically how you can view a certain object, like a half-filled glass, we normally quote that,
the
half-filled glass, whether it's empty or filled. So this gives you a positive approach as well. So this is the beauty of Sanskrit. Even the harshest of the thing, the driest of the barrenest of the thing could be explained in a very beautiful manner.
Excellent, excellent. When you said puzzle, I remember something that I studied in school. It talks about the conversation between Shiva and Parvati. So when Shiva knocks the door, Kastvam Shuli Mrigaya Bhishajam Neelakantah Priyeham Kekamekam Kuru. So he says, Kahatvam, who are you? She asks, and then he says, Shuli.
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 Let me explain. So Shuli, so Shiva, when he replies that Shuli, that is one who holds Trishula in his hand. Shulam asya astiti shulin. But Shula also means pain or agony. So for example, we have Udara Shula, Mastaka Shula, right? Vedana. And therefore she took it in that sense, Parvati, because she didn't want to, it's a Narma Vinoda. She didn't want to let him in. And therefore she said, Mrugaya Bhishajam, go and search for a doctor. Why are you come here? You should better going to a doctor, right? And then
Neelakantaha priyeham.
Neelakantaha priyeham. Then he says, oh, I am Neelakantha because of the... See, this has, all these verses, they are filled with our cultural ethos also. These are not myths, but there are so many stories in our culture. So the Ksheerasagara Manthana and Kalakuta Halahala he drank, and therefore he's got Neelakantha. But Neelakantha also means a peacock, one whose neck is Neela.
So
right?
she says,
And then-
Kekam ekam kuru.
Kekam ekam kuru. Go to the forest and go to our CIRS thing, and there are so many peacocks there, So Kekam kuru, do the Kekarava. Then
I forgot.
then Sthanu
Sthanu,
Mugdhe.
Sthanu.
He says, Sthanu, oh Mugdhe, oh innocent girl, I am Sthanu. Sthanu is one of the names, and that also refers to the Lingodbhava story of Shiva. In the Skanda Purana and Shiva Purana, we have Lingodbhava. So the Arunachala Lingam, right? So that is a pillar-like thing, Arunachala Lingam. Sthanu is a pillar or a trunk of a tree. So she takes it in the meaning of trunk of a tree, and she says, no, the tree doesn't talk. Na vadati taruhu. Na vadati taruhu. Then he says, Jiviteshaha Shivayaha. I am the very, soul of the life of Shiva. Shiva is Parvati. But Shiva, interestingly, also means a jackal, a fox. Jackal is male and Shiva is female, so a fox. Then she says, Gachatavim, go to the forest. What business you have to do here? So, in this manner, they are having Narma Vinoda. So, let them all protect you all. Let these both protect you all. That reminds me another, this Shiva Parvati, this couple is, in Sanskrit language and all the Puranas, a perfect family. We are discussing about the family unit in the morning. It's not on the education system for the Vokism and all. It all starts from the family. So in the family, there are two siblings, Ganesha and Kartikeya. They are also having a fight. And then Ganesha is crying there. So she calls him, hey Ramba. Kim Amba? What is that, mom? Kimartham rodishi katham. Why are you crying? Karanau luthati agnibhuhu. Ganesha has long elephantine ears, and therefore he says agnibhuhu, one who is born of Agni, that is Kartikeya, Skanda, Shanmuga, Muruga. Okay? So he is pulling my ears. Karanau luthati agnibhuhu. Now, as a mother, she has to question Muruga. Kimte skanda vicheshtitam. What mischief you are doing? Then what he says? Mama pura sankhya krita chakshusha. Skanda has Kartikeya, Shanmukha. So there are 6 mukhas, naturally 12 eyes. So this Bala Ganesha is counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like 12. So he was counting my eyes, I pulled his ears. Now again she will have to ask Ganesha, why did you do that? Naitatte api uchitam gajasya, he gajasya, te etat charitam, no uchitam, this is not proper. Then he says, nasa mimite. He is measuring my nasa, my nose. That is the trunk of the elephant. Nasa mimite. So this is the way the siblings are having fight, and she can't resolve that fight. So Sa Shiva Patuvaha. In Subhashita Bharatna Bhandagara, there are so many verses under the category of Patuvaha. Krishnaha Patuvaha, Shivaha Patuvaha, Durga Patuvaha, Ganeshaha Patuvaha. So the first section would be like benediction. So in that Patuvaha category, you go, it's mind-boggling. Very nice. Amazing. So you can make a story out of it. And this is happening in every family. Siblings are fighting and the mother can't resolve the fight, and then she just laughs it out and hugs both of them together, right?
Wonderful. So, generally the perception is Sanskritam is a very difficult language to learn. Maybe some audience votes, what do you feel? How easy is it to learn Sanskritam? Easy or difficult? Okay. Difficult, easy, both I'm hearing. Easy.
That's a very good way to explain it. I mean, unless you go for swimming and you go into the pool, swimming is always difficult. If you stand on the shore, it's always difficult. If you go into it, then it's fun, right? So any language for that matter. What has happened, unfortunately, let me tell you that also, because I also come from the same educational system as you all have come, right? So we, in the very first lesson of our Sanskrit class, they will start us mug up. Ramaha, Ramau, Ramaha, Prathama, Ramam, Ramau, Raman, Vitya, Ramida, Raman. So then people feel, students also feel it is just learning by heart. There is no fun in that. But if at all, after some time, I mean, not let them mug it by heart or gachami, gachava, gachama, gachasi, gachata, gachata, then it doesn't make any interesting thing for learning Sanskrit. But through subhashitas, through stories. Now, how the Guru, in the Gurukula, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, you are also learning, running a Gurukula. So when a 6-7-year-old child used to go to the Gurukula, how he used to study? Not Ramaha, Ramau, Ramaha, through stories, through songs, right?
Through plays also.
Through plays
dramas
also.
and plays.
Yeah, through plays also. I mean, in Sanskrit also there are so many plays, like you have, some games like you can't, you have to recite only in the tables of 3, tables of 5, and where you don't recite, like 5, 10, 15, and then you have to write some Rama or Om, something like that. So such type of games we can play in Sanskrit also, for numbers also, but then this is not happening, and that's why this becomes a very grammar-based study. I may tell you, when we are talking to our children in our homes, do we teach them our mother tongue as this is the karta, this is the karma, this is the kriyapada? We don't teach. We just talk to them and they learn by hearing. So when we say atmavare drashtavyaha, shrotavyaha, shravana, why all the philosophical systems in the Vedanta also we concentrate more upon shravana manana nididhyasana. Shravana is the basic, the foremost step which we have lost today. So the more we listen to, then the interest will come up, We don't listen to Sanskrit. At least, what you can listen to, that Baldev Sagari used to do that, iyam vartavalihi, idanim Sanskrita vartaha shruyantam. So, at least that's something of that. So first comes Shravana, then comes, Pathana, then Lekhana. So Lekhana comes at the end, but Shravana has to come first. We have lost that tradition of Shravana and Pathana. That's why I think it becomes difficult.
Very true. In fact, in the journey of Sanskritam, I've been reflecting upon this. Like, for example, when a child learns, say, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, when you look at the names, it doesn't give any mapping. Sunday, at least sun I know. Monday, moon I know. But what is this Tuesday? It is actually Twihi, which is a German god, which is associated with Mars, and that is why it's called Tuesday. There's such a roundabout method which takes a long time for the child to actually learn the connection, and that it is actually referring to the planets that we figure out only in, say, 20 years or 25 years of age. So what is this importance of introducing this Sanskritam in small ways, even at a very younger stages? If you can share about...
So the varas, as you said, the days, Somavasaraha, Ravivasaraha, and in Karnataka we used to say Bhanvara. So Bhanuvasaraha. Bhanu is another name for sun. So you can say Induvasaraha for Soma, for Somavasara, you can say Induvasara, for Kujavasara, for Mangalavasara. So the small ways of learning in Devanagari or in Sanskritis, you learn the synonyms also thereby. And that helps you a lot. So, and that connects you also to your planetary system, you say, or your culture, festivals, everything. So,
very good.
These are the small
very
ways.
True, very true. So, Dr. Gauri is actually the academic director at SIF, and she has done some very phenomenal research on the mantras from the Vedic tradition. And she was just sharing about how she's explored so many of these mantras, taught them to various people. So what is the significance of these mantras and learning them and then bringing them out to the larger audience.
Okay. Now the name of my thesis was that the topic was Vedic elements in Puranic mantras and rituals. So Vedas, to read Vedas and understand Vedas is very difficult. Even for a Sanskritist, reading Veda and understanding without Sayanacharya's Bhashya is very, very difficult. So I go with Sayana and then I can understand that. But we have so many Puranas, and when we do some pujas, etc., especially even the Satyanarayana Vrata Katha, and we do Sankalpa, and then we do puja and all. In the puja, there is Shodashopachara puja. And in the pujas, every puja, be it Ganesha puja or Durga puja or Vishnu puja or any other puja, while offering Gandha, we will recite Gandha Dwaram Duradharsham. Now what is this Gandha Dwara Duradharsha? This comes in the Shri Sukta. Those who know Shri Sukta, this comes in the Shri Sukta. Now what is it that connects Shri Sukta with this? We are worshipping, say, for example, Ganesha. Then what this Shri Sukta is doing in this Ganesha? Because there is a word Gandha. So, what Puranas have done, I mean, my hypothesis was this, that when Puranas quote such mantras in any of the rituals, which we normally do, we have lost track of the Vedic mantras. We no more recite the Vedic mantras. When I take the Vedic Suktas webinar, I don't recite with the swaras because I was never trained in that. Yeah. I am a university-bred student, not a Gurukula bred student. So I have not learned the Udatta, Anudatta, Swarita. I can't recite with Saswara. So I just recite it as a shloka. Huh? So now we have lost that swara. But at least the meaning thereof, the mantra should be percolating down in our tradition, because as the Mahabharata says in the very Adi Parva that Itihasa Puranabhyam Vedam Samupabruhayed Bibhetyalpashrutat Vedaha Mamayam Praharishati. So the Vedas have to be implemented, have to be endorsed and scaffolded by the Puranas and Itihasa. Otherwise the Veda Purusha is also afraid that people might misinterpret it, Vedic mantras. And this is the tradition of the Vedas which the Puranas have upheld in some or the other manner, and therefore this mantra would come there, irrespective of the meaning. Similarly, while doing the akshata, akshataihi or akshatabhihi or akshataha samarpayami, akshataihi pujayami, akshata is both masculine and feminine, okay? So in fact, feminine refers to akshata, that is a virgin girl, whereas akshata as a pullinga is the grain of rice, okay? That is the other way around. So when you say akshataihi pujayami, there is a mantra recited in the Varuna Sukta, in the Vapi Kupa Tadagadi Pujanam. When you are building some Vapi Kupa Tadaga, some water reservoirs, lakes and wells and all that, there you do Varuna's puja. And there also, while offering akshata, you will recite the mantra Akshannami Madantaha. Now Akshannami Madantaha, when I traced it back to the Rigveda, it refers to Indra Sukta. And that Indra Sukta, that akshan has nothing to do with akshata. It is from the root asha to enjoy, from which we have ashanam, okay, ashana, pipasa and all that. So akshan ami madantaha devaha, O Indra, these devas are enjoying your company while eating and drinking with you. So that has got no connection with this. But because of the phonetic similarity, akshannami and akshata, the mantra is put. At least in this way, the Vedic mantras could be preserved. So that was the whole and sole objective. And secondly, the Purana writers were not the high Brahmanical class. I mean, the Puranas were told by person to another person, and then that person, while telling it to the third person, he will add some more things, and that's why Puranas went on swelling. The literature of Puranas is too vast because of there are so many stories and anecdotes, the regional variations and all that. But nonetheless, the Puranas preserved the mantras, and therefore they are important.
When you talked about the root words, this is such an important aspect of Sanskritam. We always say about the root words, For example, say take the word for, school, right? School is a place where education is offered. What is offered in a school? It is education. And what is the place of education? It's a school. And who goes to a school? It's a student. After finishing school, where do they go? They go to a university. So all these words, university, student, school, knowledge, all these are sort of cognitively dissonant in English when you listen to it. Whereas if you take in Sanskritam, if you take the root word vid, then it is like vidwan, it is vidyalaya or vishwavidyalaya, vidyarthi. These are all connected. So how does this, root word play a significant role, in learning things?
I can quote, you asked a very good question which is very close to my heart, the text which is Nirukta. Nirukta is the science of etymology. Basically, it evolved as one of the Vedangas. You were mentioning about the IKs, the 4 Vedas, 6 Vedangas, 4 Upangas, and 4 Upavedas. Together, they make Ashtadasha Vidyasthanani. Okay? So, Nirukta was basically Vedarthaha Angyate Gamyate Anena iti Vedangam. So, for the easy understanding of the Vedic mantra, look at the word Vadhu, the root Vadha, Vadha to hit, to smash, to kill. That is there. But can you derive the word Vadhu from that root, though it is phonetically resembling? No, you should not. There is another principle, Artha Nityam Pariksheta, Samskaram na Adriyeta. Artha Nityam Pariksheta. What is the root meaning and what is the word meaning? They should tally. And therefore, the word Vadhu will be derived from root Vaha. Vaha to carry. Uyhate. Grihat griham. From Pitur grihat, Pati griham ya uyhate, one who is taken from her father's home to her husband's home, she is called Vadhu. So the very meaning becomes very, very, the root meaning and the noun, the word meaning, they should tally. Otherwise, there is a dissonance. Yes. There is a dissonance otherwise.
Very true, very true. So when we look at...
I tell you one more. Nirukta has so many principles like Varanagama, Varananasha and all that. So Dwara, for example, the door. Dwara is door, right? How can you derive the word Dwara from what? The word Daraha, meaning wife, is derived from the root Dru, Darayati. Ya Darayati Bhratrun Sa Daraha. Before marriage, 3 brothers can stay together. After one's marriage, they separate. So Bhratrun Darayati iti Daraha, that's another thing, that the word Daraha is Nitya, Bahuvachana and Pullinga. Kalatram is singular, neuter, and Bharya is feminine. For wife who has to be feminine, I'm not talking about transgenders, gay and others. Then, for a feminine wife, we have words in all the 3 genders in Sanskrit. We have only W-I-F-E, wife, only one word, right? Or spouse at the most. Anyhow, so Dwara is from Vru Varayati. With Agama of the Dakara, Varanagamat. Hamsa, for example, how Hamsa is derived? Hasanat Hamsaha. And Hasya is always referred to as white. In fact, there are stories in Bhoja Prabandha, it's a poetic fancy. All good things are white, all bad things are black. Okay. It's a binary thing, concept. So all good things, Hasya is good, Sukha is good, Punya is good. So they are all white.
You have Shukla Karma and Krishna Karma.
Yes, yes. So, but then Varayati, that which stops and prohibits, if you don't want the salesman to enter, you bang the door on his face or her face. Varayati, you stop the person from entering, that is called Dwara. So this is the beauty, So Varayati is to stop, to prohibit, and Dwara does exactly. So there is a functional similarity, if not a phonetic similarity.
So that way, everything that we see around is derivable from a root word. Yeah. And in a way, it also represents a very action-oriented society where every word is derived from a verb and not just a noun. Action-oriented society. That
Bhava pradhanam akhyadam.
And when we look at Sanskritam literature, for example, recently our Gurukulam children were exposed to the works of Vedanta Deshikar, where he talks about the chess game and then those verses that he wrote. Yes. So like that, there are so many complexities also in Sanskritam. One thing, of course, is a simple language to learn as a beginner. But as Guru Priya Chaitanya was sharing, it also gets complex in some ways. So can you bring out some those beauty aspects of Sanskritam where some complexities can be?
I can bring out. In fact, let me quote one example. I don't remember the exact full words, perhaps. I'll try to. So this is from a text on chemistry. So that also answers, is there scientific text in Sanskrit? If at all you want to ask that later. So there are so many scientific texts also in Sanskrit. So this is called Agastya Samhita. And in that, Samsthapya Mrinmaye Patram, like that, the verse starts, So how to create a battery cell. A battery cell. So this is the description of that. And then Samsthapya Mrinmaye Patram, and then Nilagriva, Nilagrivam Chitva something, and then Chadayet Ardrabhi Pausubhi. So that is the verse there. Now Nilagriva is, just now we were referring to Nilakantha, right? Nilagriva is either Shiva or a peacock. Now, does the person, the Agastya Muni, want to say that you have to cut the throat of the peacock and put it in that
Actually, many people, think it's that that rasa is prepared through peacock.
Little knowledge of Sanskrit would lead you to conclude to that or come to that. So that's a logical derivation. But this is the complexity of it, that Nilagriva, because it's a scientific text, and this knowledge should not be abused or misused. Otherwise, there is, like, terrorists also are knowledgeable, but their knowledge goes the other way, destructivities, right? So it has to be safeguarded. Basically, it is patenting or encrypting your knowledge. This is encrypting your knowledge. So Nilagriva basically is not just the throat of the peacock, but the color, the chemical which has the color of the throat of the peacock, and that is copper sulfate. So you have to put copper sulfate, CuSO4, into that.
Don't cut a peacock.
Don't cut a peacock's neck and put it there. I mean, especially scientific texts would have it. One, to protect the knowledge, and secondly, just to trigger your brain, in what way you can interpret it.
Very true. So I think we'll go to some audience questions, but since Shefali ji initially started by thanking Rajiv Malhotra, I also thought that this Sanskritam intranslatables has become such an important aspect these days. As many Sanskritam words as possible, if you're able to use it as they are, for example, dharma, and for many of these aspects that we use in life, then that becomes a very important, or getting us started on that journey. Because when we say dharma, it has so many, when you can't translate it as duty, responsibility, religion, sustainability. Contextually, it varies, and it has a very lot of deep meaning to it. So that way, that could probably be a starting point where we look at some English words that we casually use and try to retain the Sanskritam words as much as possible in the day-to-day conversations as possible, and when we write books and other things. So now we'll go to some audience questions. Maybe you can add to it.
I would like to add, somebody was asking, is it very difficult or easy? I didn't reply it the way I wanted, I should have. So now I'm getting some insight. So I thought, all the time something is going on in the mind, right? So have you seen any Sanskrit dictionary, be it Peterson or Apte or Gune or anybody, that they claim we have recorded in this dictionary all the Sanskrit vocab? We can't do that. I mean, you can have 10,000 words, 50,000 words in some dictionaries, but Sanskrit dictionary, we can't enumerate, can't count the words. Uncountable number of words can be created, because I tell you, this Sanskrit language is like a structure. It has a structured pattern of Prakriti and Pratyaya. Prakriti Pratyayaihi Pratyayabhyam Sughatita iyam bhasha. Asa iti vaktum shakyate. So, for example, you take jala, water. Okay. Can you name some other synonyms of jala? Neera, apa, toya, vari, ambu. Okay. So here itself we got some 5, 6. Now for water, water, there are in Nighantu, on which Nirukta is a commentary, there are 101 words of jala. Ekashatadhikam jalanamani. Okay. Now, you take any word of jala, maybe from that 50 are obsolete. They are not in use now. Okay. In those other 50, remaining 50, some 25 are currently in use. Okay. At least 25 names you have now. Now you have the Prakriti, jala or ambu, whatever. You add a pratyaya to it. What is the pratyaya? Ja. Ja is jayate asmat. Jale jayate jalatva jayate. Jalajam is Kamala. Born in water is Kamala. Any other word for Kamala from Jala? No. From Jala, Saroja, Neeraja, Navakanjalochana, Kanja, Mukhakara, Kanja. Kanja, Kam is Jalam. Kam nama Jalam. Ke jayate iti Kanjam. So you can have any number of words for Lotus, lotus. If you add that ja pratyaya, remove that ja pratyaya, add the. The is one dadati. Jalam dadati iti jaladaha. Cloud. For CLOUD, one word, cloud. You can form at least 20 words. So that enriches you, that is the vocabulary you can create, and therefore this is very favorite. Why everything was written in Sanskrit, no matter Sahitya or Vyakarana or even the scientific texts, why they were written in Sanskrit? Because there was lot of scope for improvisation, introducing new words by coining them together. Now you remove that the pratyaya also and add their dhihi or nidhihi. It becomes a sea, an ocean. Jaladhihi, jalanidhihi. There is a beautiful verse. I will go on like this. So there is a beautiful verse. Shanmukha we just mentioned, he has 6 heads. Now once he got very upset, with Ganga, who is flowing from the... So Ganga is flowing from Shiva's head, right? And Shiva, Parvati and Ganga are co-wives now. Now no two co-wives can stay together very happily, right? Right from Anadi time. So now this one says, Shanmukha says to Shiva, "Oh father, why are you holding this Ganga on your head? Dokyavar chadvun tevlay tila. So leave her aside, Then Shiva doesn't. He is in yoga samadhi. He won't reply. So Ganga says, "Ka gatihi mama chiram murdhni sthitaya vada." I have been staying in the head of your father, in the jatas, for years together, eternally. Ka gatihi me vada. Then Kopa vesha vashat ashesha vadanaihi pratyuttaram dattavan patho dhir jaladhir payodhir udadhir varan nidhir varidhi. With its 6 heads, 6 mouths, he uttered 6 words for ocean. That is the beauty. And for that we have made nice use of our, you can say, narratives, Puranic mythology, whatever. Now when I say this to the students, then I ask them, there are not only 6 words, there could be many more. Can you think of somebody else who would recite more names of sea like this at a go? Ravana. And exactly there is a verse on Ravana. Once Ravana was sitting there on his throne, and a messenger comes and tells that Rama has built a setu on the ocean, and Rama will be coming here. So Satyam Baddhaha Apannidhi. So the 6 nouns are there. Pathodhir, Jaladhir, Payodhir, Udadhir, Varan, Nidhir, Varidhi. That's a tongue twister also. You can say it loudly, you know. And then 4 more names in the third line. Apan Nidhihi, Kila Ladhihi, and Jala Nidhihi, and Abdhihi. So 4 more and this 9. So this was given as a Samasya Purti. If you give, you know, the last charana is given as a Samasya Purti, and you compose the first 2-3 charanas to make a meaningful verse, you know. So this was a literary pastime in the olden days. It was not just a study of philosophy, not just a study of Iko Yanachi and Echo Yava Yavaha and Adaing Vriddhi, Adaik Gunaha, Vriddhi Radaich, etc. Not only grammar, some fun and pastime, you know. So that was wonderful. So these are the ways to inculcate the ruchi, the love, the liking for Sanskrit. Sanskrit is very, 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 very what? I won't say it is easy. No language is easy. Grammar of any language is not easy. But then learning Sanskrit, the process itself is so easy. We can make it more charming.
And because it's enjoyable, it becomes easy that way.
And nowadays, you know, we have so many like small videos also by Sanskrita Bharati and so many other things. Way back in some, I think, 15-20 years back, Bajaj Auto had done their advertisement of Bajaj Auto, their scooter, and they went to Mattur in Shimoga district, a Sanskrit-speaking village, you must have heard, that was first popularized by Siddharth Kak and Renuka Shane in Surabhi, that program, Surabhi. I had taken some 70 students and some faculty to Mattur near Udupi and Shimoga, and we have visited that. We have really experienced that. But then they did this advertisement. When I teach Sanskrit in the Launchpad Sanskrit, which I recently took, I showed them the video. And margaha avaruddhaha, agrena gantavyam. What is there difficult to understand here? Margaha avaruddhaha. The way is blocked because marge vrikshaha patitaha. Tree has fallen down. He doesn't understand this fellow. He is on the bike. He just goes on and on and on. And then he says, oh, and then he says, oh, this Bajaj Auto will take you to the journey of thousands of year-old language.
Wonderful, wonderful. In fact, I was talking, one Sanskrit scholar was mentioning, he went to a village and narrated a story in Sanskritam. It was a Kannada-speaking village. And then at the end of this, he asked, like, how many of you understood the story? All the children raised their hands. The elders said, we didn't understand. Then he said, even though the children, both of you didn't know Sanskritam, the children didn't have the preconceived notion that they don't understand Sanskritam. So because 75% of all Bharatiya languages are connected to Sanskritam, when the elders felt they won't be able to understand Sanskritam, so they didn't understand a word of it. So I think it's the mental barrier that...
mental blocks.
Yeah, blocks. We have time for maybe one question or one or two questions. Maybe.
What can we do to make Sanskrit compulsory in schools?
I can't say that. I would say Sanskrit should be made compulsory. What can we do? It has to be Rajashray. It has to be government. But there could be a people's movement.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a faith
Private
in
schools
people's
can
movement.
start
Yeah.
hiring teachers.
Yeah. We have, you know, collectively, if we can do a movement, then as no bindi, no business, it became so popular.
No school,
right?
no school without Sanskrit.
So no Sanskrit, no school. So that has to be a people's demand, you know. But what has happened is, 1 or 2 generations, they haven't learned Sanskrit at all. It was all convent education, English medium education, and only 2 languages, 3 languages. I studied 4 languages, and nothing happened to me. I mean, I can speak in English also, I can speak in Marathi, I can speak in Sanskrit also. So it is not that Marathi, I studied in Marathi medium school, okay, Parle Tidak Vidyalaya. But then that doesn't hamper my English talking or English conversational skills. So it's not that 3-4 languages will be burdening on students and all. I mean, if we have a Gujarati family, my brother, my sister's Bahu is Gujarati, so her children can speak Gujarati at home, Hindi and English outside. If they are learnt any more languages, they will speak that also.
Very true. I think one generation before they could naturally speak many languages.
Many languages. And we are Indians by birth.
Polyglots.
Polyglots. At least 2 languages we know. At least 2 languages. So it's not that difficult. We have, that mental block that no, 4 languages will be too much burden on a student. It is not.
In fact, my father worked in a bank, so I have lived across the country. So every state I go, 3 years I have to shift a state. So I learned, of course, Tamil, Kannadam, Bengali, and Malayalam, Kannada, and all
I
that.
also
So,
know 6 languages and now Koracha Malayalam because
Very
I'm
good.
here in Kerala. Sanskrit? What?
Sanskritam and Devanagari.
No, Devanagari is a script. Sanskritam is a language. Now, Sanskrit can be written if you go to any manuscript libraries or any libraries which have manuscripts, region-wise the script will differ. In Kerala, we have the Sanskrit manuscripts written in either Malayalam or Grantham. In Karnataka, the Sanskrit will be written in Kannada, Hale Kannada, whatever it is. In Maharashtra, it will be written in Devanagari. In North, it will be written in Sharada. So these are the scripts. Devanagari is a script. Yeah. You can write English also in Devanagari. I mean, script is just a medium. This is just a phonetic, the morph. This is not phoneme, this is the morpheme, So you can write, I go to school in Devanagari. Right? So this is, script is just a medium of writing and language is the medium of talking. Bhasha. Yasyam bhashyate sa bhasha. Not for pratyayas. For words, Amarakosha is the best because Amarakosha gives you all synonyms, paryayavachi shabdas. But if you see Nirukta, they will give you homonyms as well. Not only synonyms, homonyms also.
And we find that all Indian names are underlined in red. We are pretending when we call ourselves IT superpower. I live in Bangalore. Actually, no one is made in India. We talk in English, but we've not made English ours because, I find my peers saying, oh, Oxford Dictionary has brought. What Oxford Dictionary? Let us see, for instance, we still say idol. Every Indian says idol. Say murti, say vigraha. So for this, we need to translate Indian words.
So we are not coming up with our own dictionaries.
We have to do that. Unless we do that, I believe we cannot move forward.
True.
Thank you.
Can I ask you just one question? There are many people here in the audience. There are many young parents also who would like that their children Sanskrit. And this can only be, Sanskrit can only be popularized if we can make every house a small mini Gurukul. So how they should go about, teaching their children, learning themselves, what is the easiest way out with the advent of technology right now, how they can learn Sanskrit. And the second thing is that what benefits they will experience in their lives, because Sanskrit is a Dev Bhasha. And, it is mother of all languages. So what benefits they will get, once they learn Sanskrit?
Yeah. So the first question, what they should do. Every house could be a Gurukula. First start reciting some shlokas, some stotras of Adi Shankaracharya. Kanakadhara stotra, or Narmadashtaka, Achyutashtaka, Krishnashtaka, or even this Manobuddhi Hankara, Nirvana Shatkam and all that. So first let us, our tongue, it must be twisting like that. And then slowly, as Ramanujacharya, the great Acharya, Vaishnava Acharya says, once you go recite something, swayameva artha nigrahanaya pravartate janaha. You know, then later on, person himself is inclined to know the meaning thereof. So the first thing the parent should recite, the stotras or shlokas, Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, something. Okay? So that is the first question. And the second, what effect does it have? I mean, there are so many neuroscientists who have claimed that the vibrations created by mantras or even the Sanskrit shlokas can work wonderfully well. I will give you, though it is personal, I would like to quote here. When my husband suffered a paralytic stroke 7 years back, he could not pronounce, his right side got affected. Now he's perfectly well. So Shefali also knows him perhaps. Tomorrow he'll be coming. So what I did on him was, Maheshwara Sutrani, Ayundruluk, Eo Gayo, Chayavarat, Lan Chayavai, Gadadash, Jabagadash, Kapa Chatata Chatata, Kapai Shashasarhal. The 14 Maheshwara Sutrani, I gave him in writing and I tried him to pronounce it without break. Without break. That was one thing. Secondly, which, I mean, you can also try it because it is a tested and proven good theory of mine. And his was like Talavya Swaras were little, Ikare, Ichu Yashanam Talu was little difficult for him. And the Murdhanya also, Rutu Rashana Murdha. So I made him do the Barakhadi, write it for his motor nerves, writing also, and pronounce it while writing. Tat, ta, tit, tit, tut, tut, tit, tit, tot, tot, tam, taha, tat, tat, tit, tit. That also helped. So, and I have learnt some examples. I mean, this is there in Jnaneshwari, before 10th chapter of Jnaneshwari. Jnaneshwar Mauli has written some 10 OVs. They are called OVs, but they are Sanskrita Prachura. And somebody told me, why don't you try that? I tried that also. But all cumulative, collective effort, maybe collective result, but it resulted really well. And another thing is Ramaraksha Stotra. It is miraculous. Ramaraksha Stotra, it is Raksha Kavacha. It's basically a Kavacha. So those who look down upon the Kavacha and the Argala and the other things, there is some bija, there is some stuff in all these mantras. So that is the answer to your second question.
And I know at least 4 or 5 people who have healed because of the Sanskrit chanting from stroke, actually.
Yes.
And of course, this Shravana part.
And the Medha Sutta, which was recited. In fact, one of my friends is a Yajurvedi Brahmana, Satpurkar, and Deshastha Rugvedi, no, not Yajurvedi, Deshastha Rugvedi. And in Vileparle, there is a Deshastha Rugvedi Samaj. So there he made this was done an experiment.
Oh.
And on the, what you can say, spatial children.
Oh,
spatial children, he did this experiment and they could speak.
Excellent. Now they've indicated the
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah.
Excuse
It's time up.
Amazing, ma'am. Very enlightening.
Can I have one question, please? Excuse me. One question?
So, next. We are running really short of time. May I now request Dr. Shiv Shastri, a surgeon by profession, who's written a book on Arian in debunking the Arian invasion theory. He's also a defense enthusiast. Way back in the 2000s, when the internet and multimedia weren't that developed, he used to project the warfare and things like that. He has come all the way from Bangalore to attend the Litfest. He himself is a very celebrated author. His books are also available at the Subbu Books. And he's the grandson of late S.G. Shastri, known as Soap Shastri. Yes. So S.G. Shastri developed the Mysore sandal soap as an alternate for animal fat in soap. And Shastri ji substituted Mysore sandal oil instead of animal fat. We welcome you, sir. Please felicitate Dr. Gauri Molikar ji. It's an honor to have you too, sir.
Thank you so very much. Such an enlightening session after all. Thank you, ma'am. So now I wish to call upon Shri Arun Krishnan and Shri M.R. Deepak for a wonderful session to be Distortions, Discourse, Disha, our Itihasa and Puranas. Thank you very much, sir. Please come up on stage.
Namaskaram. Thank you to all. Nandri. And the session is titled Distortion of Itihasas and Purana. Before I begin, or we begin, I'd like to ask a couple of questions to the audience. How do you refer to Itihasas and Puranas when you refer to them? Any thoughts, any question? How do you refer to Itihasas and Puranas when you're talking to somebody in English? Sorry? Mythology.
Indian stories.
So I think this is a knowledgeable audience, but in general, the tendency is to refer to them as mythologies, right? The second question, how many history enthusiasts here? Okay, a few hands up. How many of you think that the history you were taught in your schools is the correct history? Okay, I see a lot more hands going up saying no. All right, so what we are hoping to do today in this session, Deepak is, I would say, well versed in the Puranas and Itihasas. He would be an expert. I'm not an expert in anything. I write historical fiction, so I'm passionate about history, but I don't claim to be a history expert. However, what we are trying to do today is to figure out what are the distortions that we have had over time in our Itihasas, Puranas, and the way history has been taught to us. While we were doing this, before we do that, I'm just going to read out a little passage from a book that came out recently. All right? So here's what it says. During the days of Nehruvian rule in the 1950s and early 1960s, Indian school textbooks and most academic histories were written by left-leaning, Congress-supporting figures. These historians tended to underplay the violence and iconoclasm that came with the Turkish invasions, partially in the interests of what they saw as, within quotes, nation building, following the terrible interreligious violence that had taken place during partition. Today, under the current right-wing BJP government, the reverse is true, and the destruction of Hindu temples is almost all that many in India seem to know of the complex but fascinating medieval period of Indo-Islamic history. Anybody can guess who this author would be? Sorry? It's not Vikram Sampath. Ramchandra Guha, Shashi Tharoor. If this was the game of getting hot, you're getting hotter. No. It's William Dalrymple in his latest book. Okay? So, things are not as dark as we thought they were. The fact that he is even acknowledging this, I think, is a victory for what we have achieved over the last 10 years. But anyway, so as Deepak and I were thinking about it, there's multiple ways we can go about it. We thought we'd bucket them into 4 buckets, right? The first is erasure. Second is obfuscation. Third is outright lies. And fourth is just ignoring something. Okay? So I'm going to ask you, Deepak, to start off with erasure and how do you see Puranas and Itihasas in that context?
Namaste and Vanakkam. So first of all, I'm no expert. I'm just a student of the our Itihasas and Purana. But thank you for calling me an expert.
Sorry, anybody who knows more than me is an expert.
That's a good definition. So, the first category we thought of talking about was on erasure. How a part of our Puranas and Itihasas are being systematically erased. So it's an unfortunate reality that our entire Itihasa and Puranas have been dubbed as fiction, myths, mythology. That means they are not true. So we have people questioning that, oh, Krishna did miracles, Rama did miracles. How can that be true? They used daivastras that could produce fire. How could that be true? So it's all false. So it's just story. So therefore, it is not a part of history. So that's what we get to hear from the leftist historians. And as a result, what has happened? They have systematically erased our Itihasas from our records. So our students believe that the Ramayana and Mahabharata are stories. They do not consider it as history. But we say it is Itihasa, it happened. So we believe that it happened. But they do not believe it. And there is a statement that I would like to share here, which was made by the icon of the leftist Marxist historians, Romila Thapar. In a program she said, the character of Yudhishthira was inspired by Ashoka. Now, at the outset, this looks like a joke, but it is a very, very sinister statement. The objective of this statement is, there is no person called Yudhishthira, he never existed. So, somebody after the rule of Ashoka thought of a story called Mahabharata, and they created a character called Yudhishthira based on Ashoka. So, that's been their approach, and unfortunately, this approach has become a part of our education system. So, as a result, our children, and even we, in our generation too, we did not study Ramayana and Mahabharata in history. There was virtually no mention. And we may even have had teachers who told us that, no, those are all stories. They are not history. So there has been a systematic attempt to erase our Itihasas from the records. So it's very unfortunate. And even though there are evidences, see, we believe that our Itihasas worked on oral tradition. So it was told by one person, bards sang it, they told it to different persons. It got passed on from generation to generation. And finally, somebody wrote it down in the form of a manuscript. Because the original Mahabharata was written by Ganesha. That's what we believe. That manuscript is not available today. So it was narrated by Vaishampayana and many others later. So later on, it was transcribed into a manuscript. So there may not be enough evidences to call it as history. That's the allegation. But there are evidences. So we have had eminent archaeologists like Professor B.B. Lal and S.R. Rao who have done a lot of excavation works, and they have done it at the sites where the Mahabharata war took place. Hastinapura, Indraprastha, and many other places. And they have found evidence to prove that there was a civilization at that time, and the Mahabharata is part of our history. But unfortunately, we do not get to study that. So we can only hope that our future generations will get to study it. In the same way, in our chronicled history, I'm sure there are many instances of erasure wherein our Marxist historians have tried to remove things from history. I'm sure Arun would like to share that.
Sure, thanks, Deepak. So, look, I know I'm sitting in Tamil Nadu, so this next set of questions, I'm sorry, I used to be a professor, so I'm going to ask questions of the audience, okay? How many of you have heard of Karikala Choran? Yeah. When I ask this question outside of Tamil Nadu, there's hardly a hand that goes up, okay? What is Karikala Choran famous for? Kallanai, okay? Right. How many of you have heard of Lasit Borfu Khan? A few hands. Okay. How many of you have heard of Martanda Varma? What is he famous for? Correct. Parasi Raja. Everybody has seen the Mammootty movie, is it? Okay. The point I'm trying to make is our history is so Delhi-centric. Correct? You all agree? See, I'm a Tamilian, but I didn't grow up in Tamil Nadu. I grew up outside. And I didn't learn about Karikala Choran before I moved here, right? But if you think about it, when we read history, everything is Delhi-centric. You read about our history is a long list of defeats, starting from the Aryans who came, beat us up, and Dr. Shastri has written a book about it, about debunking it. Then we come to, suddenly we jump a few, 1,000 years or so, and we come to Ajata Shatru, Buddha, then the Maurya dynasty, and then we jump again to the Guptas. We lightly skimming over the Kushanas, and post that we come to Harshavardhana, correct? Now, during the reign of Harshavardhana, there were two other great kings in South India, in India. Who were they? Sorry? Aditya. Lalitaditya was in Kashmir, but there was, I think, slightly after Harsha, if I'm not mistaken. There were the two great kings were one who defeated Harsha. Who was that? Immudi Pulikeshi. And the other one was somebody who, after whom a town is named very close to Chennai. Mahamallapuram, Mahabalipuram, Narasimha Smara Pallava, right? We don't hear about it. All we hear about is that Huan Sang went to Harshavardhana's court. Everybody has heard that? Did you know that Huan Sang also went to visit Pulikeshi, that he also visited Kanchi? Think of it. If an alien were to come today and he were to visit Joe Biden, Xi Jinping, Putin, and Narendra Modi. That's what Huan Sang pretty much did in India, right? Three great kings at that time, he visited all three. But we don't hear about it. We just hear about Harsha and we get neglected. Lasit Borphukan was a great Assamese general who defeated Aurangzeb's army on the Brahmaputra in a major, it was not a sea battle, it was a river battle. Okay? And I hadn't heard about it until about maybe 3-4 years ago when Sanjeev Sanyal started talking about it. Martanda Varma defeated the Dutch in the Battle of Kolachag. And if he hadn't, I might have been speaking Dutch right now. We all might have been speaking Dutch. So the point is, this erasure is what we are kind of talking about. You know, it's not just, in this case, it's not obfuscation. It's actual erasure of this history from what is taught to us, right? Okay, so let's move on to obfuscation. And I think we have a lot more to say about obfuscation because our governments have made it, they are kind of past masters at this. So I'll throw the ball back in Deepak's court.
Okay, so coming to this category, obfuscation is trying to muddy the waters, trying to cause confusion. So there have been many such issues related to our Itihasas and Puranas. And one of the biggest issue is the issue of caste. Jati, which is being confused with Varna. So the allegation which the Marxist historians and the so-called liberals make is that our Puranas and Itihasas were casteist. They promoted casteism, they promoted untouchability. So the fate of those who were at the lower caste, it became worse during those times. So does it hold good? Let's take a look. So there are two terms here. One is Varna and the other is Jati. Varna is class. It is a classification system. So people were classified as Kshatriya, Brahmanas, Vaishyas and Shudras based on what they did, what their work they did. Later on, Varna became Jati. So why did that happen? A son of a Kshatriya wanted to become a Kshatriya. The blind king Dhritarashtra wanted his evil son Duryodhana to continue after him, even though he knew he was incompetent. Right? So probably there is a mother who is a ruler. She wants her imbecile son also to rule after her. So this happened in history, and as a result, the caste system came up. But originally, at the time of the Mahabharata and Ramayana, we had the Varna system. So this is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita when Krishna says, Chatur Varnyam Maya Shrishtam Gunakarma Vibhagasha. So Krishna says, I created the 4 Varnas. On what basis? Guna and karma. So one was the character, the traits of a person, and the other was the karma, the action. So what you do, how you behave, that determines your Varna or class. So does that mean Varna is portable? Can someone change their Varna? The answer is a big yes. It was possible to change the Varna in those times. So Vishwamitra was a king, a Kshatriya. He saw Vashishta's power and he said, I am going to become a Brahmana. And he did penance for hundreds of years. He became a Brahmarshi. Then there is one more example of Rama's ancestor called Trishanku. As a king, he wanted to go to heaven and he disregarded his teacher's advice. So he was cursed to become a Chandala. So Kshatriya who ruled the country, he became a Chandala. So how about the other way? Is there an example of a Shudra who became a Brahmana? Yes, there is a very famous story of Satyakama Jabali. So Satyakama was a young boy who went to the great sage Gautama. This is not Ahalya Gautama, this is some other Gautama. So he told him that I want to be your I want to be your student. So the sage said, what is your Gotra? What is your caste? He said, my mother used to serve many people, so I don't know who is my father. I have no idea, so I don't know about my lineage, but I am desirous of learning. So then the sage said that you have an interest to learn. You could have told any lie. You did not lie. You told the truth. That is the trait of a Brahmana. So therefore, you are a Brahmana and now I am going to teach you, I am going to make you a student. So all these stories clearly illustrate that yes, it was possible to change Varna. And Yudhishthira confirms it in the Mahabharata. So there is a dialogue with Nahusha, the serpent who is cursed. So wherein Nahusha asks about this and Yudhishthira says, a Brahmana who does not have the traits of a Brahmana is a Shudra. So it is not that just because somebody is born as a Brahmana, they will remain in that category forever. So that was the Varna system. Unfortunately, it morphed into the caste system. So there is a quote which I want to share. Particular attention has to be paid to the fact that this Varna system was essentially a class system in which individuals, when qualified, could change their class and therefore classes did change their personnel. Any idea who wrote it? Any idea who would have said this? Yes, it was Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar who said it. So he himself has acknowledged that it was a class system. And in another of his book, he says, untouchability did not exist in the time of Manu. Yet we hear the word Manuvadi. You know, that Manu was casteist, Manu introduced caste. So that has been the unfortunate reality here, wherein Varna and Jati have been confused. And as a result, there has been a lot of obfuscation. And there have been allegations against our Itihasa, wherein our texts have been called as casteists, promoting untouchability, and all such things. So the reality is something different. And this is another thing that we need to propagate. We need to make it clear to students especially that, no, there is a difference between Varna and Jati. So when did Varna become Jati? Ambedkar himself says it took place somewhere between the 2nd and the 6th century AD, or what we call now as CE. So when Ambedkar himself says it, so any argument to the contrary can be pushed aside. So in the same way, there have been obfuscation incidents in our chronicled history. Arun would talk about it.
So thanks, Deepak. Let's start with the mother of all obfuscations, the Arian invasion theory. Okay, I think I don't need to belabor the point. We all know by now that, so it hangs on a few myths. One of those is one find where there were a few skeletons found, which were then related to something that Indra is supposed to have done in the Rig Veda. And so, ergo, Indra was the Arian, attacker who attacked and defeated and killed the indigenous folks here. The other, obviously, has to do with the horse. Okay, the fact that there were no horse remains found in any of the earlier, let's say, Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. Sanauli, everybody has heard of Sanauli now? Yes? Sanauli has debunked that, right? You've got horse remains, you've got a chariot there, you've got everything there. So that's 2400 BCE. So it's older than the later Harappan period, which means those places coexisted. So there's no reason to still. So I used to tell my daughters when they were going through this, I said, I would tell them about all this at dinner time, and they would say, okay, so what do we do during exam time? So I would say, exams, you write what is taught, okay, but this is the real history. So the so the second piece, Saraswati, okay, the Rig Veda calls it the mighty flowing Saraswati. We know by the time of the Mahabharata that Saraswati had dived underground when Arjuna went on his travels. Balarama, sorry. Yeah, thank you. I told you I wasn't an expert. Balarama went on his travels, and geological evidences have shown that the Saraswati probably dried completely around 1800 BCE because the channel changed. So half of it, the waters started flowing into, I think, the Indus or the Sindhu. The other half started flowing into the Yamuna. Okay, somewhere roughly around 1800 BCE, which is actually the theme for my next book, which is coming out next year, but little plug for my book. But the idea, again, is there is so much evidence. There's a wonderful book by Michel Danino about this. And is it The Lost River? It's The Lost River. I would really encourage folks to go and read that book because it gives you every single scientific evidence there is for why the Saraswati was actually existing, and the fact that hundreds of old settlements have been found along the paleo channel of the old Saraswati River. Okay? Again, obfuscation. We are never told about that. Let's come to let's jump ahead. Okay? Let's come to the Indian independence struggle. How many of you truly believe that we won independence because through non-violence? Come on, let's see some raised hands. There were some 3-4 raised hands. Okay, maybe this is a biased crowd, but okay. I see you, sir. It is a biased crowd, yes. But the fact is that sorry? Oh, it's an educated, biased crowd. Okay. The fact is, we have, think about the way we were taught it. Even when they were talking about Tilak and Tilak ji and the others, we were taught about the Naram Dal and the Garam Dal, right? The extremists and the moderates and the extremists in English. The extremists. So basically, you're calling Tilak ji and all those folks who were with him as extremists because they didn't toe the quote-unquote Gokhale or moderate line. That's how we've been taught. And that kind of obfuscation, when we know for sure, if you think about Veer Savarkar and his struggle, the fact that the Raj Bihari Bose ji and his struggles to get the NDA not the NDA, the INA going, then Subhash Chandra Bose came along. All of that is airbrushed out. We don't hear about how many people have heard of the naval mutiny? The naval mutiny, very few have heard. My kids didn't hear about it in school, right? Nobody heard about the fact. The British basically faced a full-blown mutiny, and when they told the army who had come back after World War to fire on their naval comrades, the army flat out refused. There was no way the British were going to rule us after that. So the whole basis of what we are taught about in terms of how we got our independence, obfuscation. And I just want to mention in passing that think about the Ram Mandir. Think about all the obfuscation that was done. We've seen it. There was evidences that were dug up, archaeological evidences. Quote unquote eminent historians went to court and basically they lied. They committed perjury. They lied under oath, saying that some inscription that was found, that was brought in from a museum in Allahabad or somewhere. Just incredible the level of obfuscation that went on. And you've heard Vishnu Shankar Jain ji this morning talk about Kashi Vishwanath and Mathura and all that. So the point is, yes, we've been fed a series of half-truths, I wouldn't call them outright lies because there's a whole section on outright lies we'll talk about. So why don't we talk about outright lies in the Puranas and Itihasas?
The third category which we worked out is outright lies. So there are certain big lies that have been propagated over the years. There are many such lies. So due to shortage of time, I've just taken one. So a very common thing which we hear from historians and feminists is that our Puranas were patriarchal. Women did not have any agency. Women were subjugated. They had no rights. Widows were burnt. So these are the things we hear, and we hear, of course, there are issues. We are not denying that there are issues, but definitely they did not happen during the time of our Itihasas and Puranas. So let's take the first issue of women had no agency. The best example we can quote is that of Savitri. Now just imagine, here is a girl, a princess, who says, I'm going to go around the country and find my own husband. Can someone do it today? Just imagine the hangama that will happen on social media and on TV. No, she's a princess. She says, I'm going to go around the country, find my husband. She finds her husband. Then it is found that her husband is a poor man living. He has deposed king's son. He's living in a forest. And there's a bigger shock. He has just 1 year to go before he will die. But yet she sticks to her stand and she proves that she can save her husband. So there is a school of thought which believes that Savitri planned the dialogue with Yama before itself. That she knew Yama himself would come. Why? Because her husband was so virtuous. So she planned that I'm going to do this. Well, whether that is true or not is a different story. The point is, she was an extremely wise lady, an extremely intelligent, strong lady, a lady who had agency, who could take decisions on her own. But yet, the word Sati Savitri is used derogatorily. But Savitri is the one woman whose story is chronicled in the Mahabharata who is so strong. Then, the next instance is that of widows, the status of widows. Who is the first woman ruler of India? Any answers? First woman who ruled any kingdom in India. If you go to Google, it will say Razia Sultana. But there are many, many before that. The first one was Satyavati from the Mahabharata. In the absence, when her husband died, when her eldest son died, she ruled. She may not have been coronated as queen, but she sat on the throne. She ruled with the help of Bhishma because Bhishma would not sit on the throne. Then her younger son also died. And there was a long gap before Pandu could come of age. So she ruled. And she ruled with an iron hand. She was the first woman ruler and she was a widow. So a widow could rule the greatest kingdom in India, Hastinapura. Then, in our chronicled history, there is an instance. So there's a book called as Rajatarangini by Kalhana, who chronicles the history of Kashmir. So he says that during the time of Krishna, there was a king called Damodara. He made a mistake of waging war against Krishna and Krishna killed him. So Krishna went there and he saw his wife Yashovati. She was pregnant. So he said that Yashovati will be the next queen. So there was opposition, but he quelled it. So Yashovati, a widow, became the first queen of Kashmir. So that is there in our history, but yet we are told that widows were burnt. So how many widows were burnt? Dasharatha had 3 widows. They were not burnt. Kunti was alive until the end and she was a very, very important character. So the only instance we get is Madri. So it was more of guilt because she felt that it is because of her Pandu, died. So all these stories about widows being ill-treated, women being subjugated, they are all false. And then one more last example from this big outright lie is about our legend Sri Ramchandra. Misogyny, that is the word which is used against him because of the way he is supposed to have treated Sita. Now did Rama really believe that Sita was impure? Definitely no. Then why did he do the Agni Pariksha? Because he was not an ordinary man. He sat on the throne of Ayodhya. Anything he does, any decision he takes would impact the throne. So he did not want a single taint either on the throne or on the image of the queen of Ayodhya. So he wanted the whole world to see that Sita is pure. That's why he did the Agni Pariksha. A similar instance is found in the story of Shakuntala in the Mahabharata. Now the Shakuntala we know, which we have read about and seen on TV or movies, is Kalidasa's Abhignana Shakuntala. There's a huge difference between that Shakuntala and the Shakuntala of Mahabharata. Kalidasa Shakuntala is a damsel in distress. So that is, he wanted to create a romantic story, that's why he did it. But the real Shakuntala was brave. She came to the court, and when Dushyanta rejected her, there is no story of ring here. Losing ring, forgetting nothing. He insults her. But she stands her ground. And finally a divine voice says, this is your wife. So then he says, I know you are pure. I know you are my wife. I know Bharata is my son. But someone comes with a boy and I place this boy tomorrow on the throne, the people will question the legitimacy of the throne. So that's why I wanted to prove. So it was the concern for the kingdom and the throne that made Dushyanta as well as Rama behave in a particular way. It had nothing to do with a woman being subjugated, insulted or humiliated, or that only a woman had to be tested. So we hear the quote, Caesar's wife must be above suspicion. Right? So for Caesar it's acceptable, but not for Rama. That's the hypocrisy of our historians. So like this, there are many such outright lies in our Itihasas and Puranas. So there are similar lies in our history too. So I would request Arun to please take over.
Sure. Thank you. Okay, where do I start? Let's start with Ashoka. Ashoka the Great. Why is Ashoka called the Great? Anybody? Sorry? After the Kalinga War, he became like a sannyas and a Buddhist. The Kalinga War took place in 261 BCE. Ashoka became a Buddhist in 265 BCE, 4 years before the Kalinga War. Okay? Outright lie. They don't tell us this. He was already a Buddhist when the Kalinga War happened. It was, so I don't know what we have been taught. Maybe it was a plan to, maybe at that time when Nehruji wrote Discovery of India, he was under the influence of the Gandhi and Ahimsa. So maybe an Ahimsa-oriented king as an ideal to strive for is what he went after. I'm not, okay, circumstances change. But from a historical point of view, it's just not true. Also, post that, there is no single inscription of his in Kalinga where he is actually talking about peace and saying, I'm sorry. There is one inscription somewhere on the what's now Afghanistan coast, which actually kind of is threatening and says, if you chaps don't, listen to me and do what I say, remember Kalinga. That doesn't sound like a very peaceful king to me. Okay? So that's one lie. Let's come to Akbar the Great, the second great. Akbar the Great, we are told, was a very, he did Deen-e Ilahi as this thing, and he was, very equitable and so on and so forth. The man cut off somebody's head when he was 12 or 13, became a Ghazi. A Ghazi is a holy warrior who has killed a kafir, an infidel. In Chittor, they actually slew about 30,000 innocent civilians, and he had, Akbar the Great. He had a mountain of skulls made out of that. Okay? Akbar the Great. 40,000. Okay. So 40,000. Have you heard about, who destroyed Nalanda? Bakhtiyar Khilji. Correct? You know what the leftist historians have actually written? They have taken, there's actually no extant contemporary account, but there's some account they have got from somewhere, which said that 2 Brahmins came, and because they were insulted, they felt insulted by a Buddhist, they set it on fire. Go ahead. And then what, typical of academicians and leftist academicians, they keep quoting each other. They keep referring to each other. Okay? Yeah, and so there's this vicious circle where I will refer to you, you will refer to my articles, then my students will refer to your students' articles, and so on and so forth. So that's another outright lie. So the sequence of lies is just incredible. All right? Yes. Can we do this? I'll give you enough time for question and answers. Let's just hold that. I have one more section that I wanted to talk about. We've spoken about erasure, obfuscation, and outright lies. There's also one where, you know what, the unkindest cut of all is if you just ignore something. What do I mean by that? We've heard folks talk about our scientific achievements. Okay? We heard Wing Commander Sir talk about, did you talk about it? Did Ashwin talk about the Fibonacci series? Ashwin Sanghi spoke about it. The Fibonacci series and how Pingala came up with it, right? But there were many more such things. So, how many have heard of the Kerala School of Mathematicians? Again, very knowledgeable crowd. When I usually ask this north of Tamil Nadu, or maybe north of Bangalore, I don't see this many hands go up. For those who haven't heard, the Kerala School of Mathematicians found out pretty much Taylor series expansions, Maclaurin series expansions, about 250 years before Mr. Taylor and Mr. Maclaurin refound them or rediscovered them, right? There's a t-shirt. I know you have a few t-shirts about this. There's a pie as well, right? In fact, they were the ones, in a way, who pretty much found calculus before Newton and Leibniz did. Okay? So, we aren't taught that. And have you heard of Kannada? Kannada. Again, a few. You know what? Of the few hands that went up, the majority were young kids. I am so happy to, which means folks my age don't know. Please stand up. Let's give them a round of applause because this is incredible. I haven't heard this, seen this. Please sit down. I haven't seen this elsewhere. Kannada was you could call him a physicist who gave the first kind of laws about gravity as well as Newton's laws of what we now call of Newton's laws of action and reaction and so on. We aren't taught that. And we aren't taught that because we have systematically been forced to feel ashamed of our culture, of our traditions. Our history is a long litany of defeats that we are supposed to have suffered. Yet surprisingly, we are still here. We are the oldest living Bronze Age civilization still. The Islamist invaders took, I think, 25 years to rid Iran of their original inhabitants. Of all the Middle East, pretty much in about 25 to 30 years, the original culture was lost. We are still here, which means there must have been some fight back, no? People fought back, like we heard. The reason the South, why do we find so many old temples in Tanjore? The reason is because you had Harihara and Bukka and Kumara Kampana and Veeraballala and all those folks, and then the whole Vijayanagara Empire, and then Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj and the Marathas who protected us south of the Vindhyas. So, yeah, we are here, we point with pride to all our ancient and old temples, and we sometimes sneer at North Indians, say, you don't have any old temples. There's a very good reason for it. And there's a very good reason why we have old temples. Okay, I am done. I think we can open it up for questions unless you have...
Yeah, the topic says discourse and disha, the way forward. So what is the way forward? So before that, just one small point about ignoring. The Pushpaka Vimana, so that is there in our Itihasa as a aerial vehicle. So naturally, since it's there in our Puranas, they scoff at it. Leonardo da Vinci has made a sketch. Oh my God, that was a great invention. But it is there in the Ramayana? No, it is all fake. So that's the kind of approach which we unfortunately have seen over the years. And we even had a scene wherein, I think, if I'm not wrong, a minister spoke about this in the Science Congress, and some scientists and Nobel Prize winners walked out, opposing that. Yeah. So they are just not ready to accept anything, any achievements that we have made in our itihasas, because they just remove it. They just say it is all rubbish. It's all fake, it's all fiction. It never happened, nothing like that happened. So that's our sad reality. So the way forward, what is the way forward? So obviously it is the government which should change the ecosystem, which we have been speaking about since morning. So as Anant Lakshmi ji has already done in her institution, she has made her own textbooks that give different perspectives. So the same way, that this kind of a system should spread everywhere. So we cannot depend on the government on everything. Of course, government has been doing a lot of things. We have had IKS. Then NEP has said that Ramayana and Mahabharata must be taught in school. But unfortunately, NEP will not be implemented in many states. We know why. So that's our sad reality.
I'll tell you something about NEP. NEP was implemented in Karnataka,
Yes.
and then the government changed. And the next day, NEP was gone. So my daughter went into college on NEP, and then they just pulled it out from under. So
I just want to say one thing on this. The minister said in a press conference, whatever the previous BJP government has done, I'm going to pluck it from the roots and throw it out. That is what he said, and they just scrapped NEP. So we don't know to what extent it will be implemented. Of course, we need to expect that the government does help, but we need to do something. We are all part of the writing community. So what we can do, we can write about this. We can make podcasts, we can have discussions, and let's try and spread the message. So as readers, you can share this message, especially to children, as madam is doing. It's an amazing piece of work that she's doing. So if everyone else can replicate this, definitely that is the way forward. So I think
I just hope that we have a government that is a BJP government at the center that can do all this. That was sarcasm if you didn't get it.
It's been 10 years.
Yeah. We're
A
done.
solid session on distortions. Thank you, Arun Krishnanji and M.R. Deepakji. We have two eminent guests who will be releasing a total of 5 books in this session. 3 by Arun Krishnanji. It is Battle of Vatapi series, trilogy. The book one is Nandi's Charge. The second one is Simha's Roar. And the third one is Varaha's Vengeance. And it will be launched by none other than Anand Narasimhan of CNN IBN, who's here with us. And also the 2 books of Nilesh Okji. One is Markandeya Ramayana, the story of Rama and Mahabharata, and original Vyasa Mahabharata of M.R. Deepakji. M.R. Deepakji, it will be released by Nilesh Okji. So much of Mahabharata we hear from Nilesh Okji that I... So may I request Anand Narasimhanji to come to the dais. And Nilesh Okji, you may... Please give it to Nilesh Okji. We welcome Anand Narasimhanji from CNN IBN, who has taken out time. It's more like a precise flying in and flying out operation. Welcome you, sir. Yep. The Battle of Vatapi trilogy by Arun Krishnan, released by Anand Narasimhan. Fantastic, sir. And may I request Advocate Kavita Palnisamy ji Akka to felicitate M.R. Deepak ji and Dr. Uma Shri to felicitate Arun Krishnan. And we will quickly break for a coffee break, and it will be a keynote address by Anand Narasimhan ji after we return from the coffee break. So please make the coffee break as early as possible. Do not make volunteers come and call people inside, so we start the session on time. 4:25 we assemble back sharp. Thank you.